This is the first ever premium 1x4 scale PVC anime figure by a Chinese brand, coming at an eye-watering 47,000 yen. Are you willing to spend this kind of money on a Chinese brand figure? Well, guess what? If this figure does not scare the hell out of freeing, I've no idea what will. Hi and welcome back to the channel. I'm Steven from X Kurogane Studio, and today's figure review is probably the most anticipated detailed figure review coming from me in the last few months. In fact, some of you were already asking me and pestering me on my Discord server, Steven, when are you going to review that Red Hood figure in detail? The one I unboxed back in early or mid-January. So here we are, because I have a long list of videos to make, and now it happens to be her turn. We are looking at 1x4 scale Goddess of Victory Nikke Red Hood, made by Hobby Sakura, a Chinese brand that has become pretty famous lately, mostly for the quality of their figures, and the pricing is, well, I would say reasonable, in the sense that they are not exactly cheap, but they're slightly better priced than some Japanese figure brands. Yet this figure's quality over here reminds me of the very best Japanese figure brands out there, and I'm not even joking. This thing is already surpassing Freeing. Freeing bunnies are quite a lot cheaper, 40,000 yen max maybe. Freeing has 1x4 scale Nikke, Bay and Clay at 40,000 yen, but their bunny girls can be anywhere between 30 to 36,000 yen. This is a lot more expensive, but guess what? Spoiler alert, a hell lot better. So before we proceed to the details on the paintwork and the sculpt, a quick mention about the dimensions, which I have already measured this thing in all three directions. So the length from the back over here, actually from the back of a rifle, all the way to the front of her right foot over here, that would be 42 centimeters. The height from the bottom of the base all the way to the top of her left horn over here, 29.5 centimeters. Yeah, plus minus 0.5, could be 30. There could be a small margin of error on my part when I measured it, close to 30 centimeters or 12 inches. Meanwhile, the depth, and I mean from this side over here to this side, right? Not this way, more like side to side, that would be roughly 26 centimeters. So this figure has quite the big footprint, but not really that bad when you think about it, because the height is right under 12 inches. As long as you have the space, horizontal space, you may be able to squeeze her into any ordinary display shelf. Yes. The only issue is what comes after this. Cinderella is coming in March. That figure is going to take up way more space in all three directions. This thing is relatively compact in comparison, surprisingly. So moving on to the boxes, the packaging, the box is excellent. I'm not sure if I like the design, but I think it looks fancy enough, and the quality of the box is fairly solid. And I believe I mentioned the dimensions of the box in my unboxing video, so do remember to check that video out. I'm leaving the link right up here. So the quality of the box is an easy 9 out of 10 minimum. So I had no complaints about the box. And regarding the contents for the deluxe version, I went straight for the deluxe version. There is an acrylic stand inside, which is shelved at the side. Initially, I thought it was a wall scroll, but I can't remember whether Hobby Sakura announced that it would be a wall scroll or an acrylic stand. So I'm keeping the acrylic stand in the box for now, not displaying it. And regarding the price, right, I did mention at the start of today's video, 47,000 yen for the deluxe version and 45k for the standard version. Meanwhile, the release date was back in early January this year. However, the amount I paid for this figure is actually way cheaper. The Chinese price, I paid for her in Chinese pricing, that would be 1900 Chinese yuan. Deluxe version. So if you do the conversion, it is a few thousand yen cheaper than Japanese yen. That is the advantage of buying Chinese brand figures from China. Yeah. And by now, it is a bit difficult to find this figure at this 1900 Chinese yuan pricing. You're looking at least 2100 Chinese yuan. Yeah, which is still a really good price, to be honest. So I'm not complaining if I had to pay an additional 200 Chinese yuan for this one. So regarding assembly, There is none. Zero. You just take the whole figure out and peel off all of the plastic films around the figure. No assembly whatsoever. The rifle is glued to the figure, permanently fixed, and the figure is also permanently stuck to the base over here, which is a rock base with this, I'll call it a trash mob, right? Yeah, the insects or the beetles in the game where you had to defeat a trash mob character. So all of these are stuck together. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on what kind of person you are. For me, fortunately, this figure has a kind of like diorama base, so I don't mind it as much when it comes to the figure permanently stuck to the base. But if it was some plain round disc base and the figure brand were to permanently attach the figure to the base and screw it in, then I would be pretty mad at that. Yeah, but for this kind of figure, I'm okay with that. So no assembly, which is great news. Less likely for you to break anything. And speaking of stability, there's nothing to test over here because the whole figure is just rock solid. Well, maybe if you knock the figure over here, it may topple over. It may, I'm not sure, but there is plenty of support from all angles. She'll wobble a bit maybe. So this is a 9 out of 10 for stability because of this wobble over here. I wish that this extra part behind here is sitting flush with the table, but it is floating up a little bit. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be like this. I'm not sure if every copy of this figure is exactly like this. But this part behind is, yeah, it is suspended in mid-air a little bit. So I'm a bit not pleased about that. But that is probably the only weakness of this figure, which is a very small one. Probably not even an issue to some of you. So we move on to the sculpt of this figure. You compare her to the official artwork of Red Hood from Goddess of Victory Nikke. She looks identical, right? You need to remember that this is my first time purchasing and reviewing a Hobby Sakura figure. They have made so many original characters in the past at 1/7 scale, roughly 20,000 yen, that I was not interested in. Now, a 1/4 scale Nikke character, now we are talking, right? So, right off the bat, the sculpt over here, I can give it an easy 9.5 out of 10, the bare minimum for everything. Because this figure, when it comes to the sculpt, this is virtually flawless. I could not find any ugly gaps or seam lines where the parts are not fitting. There is no glue leaking out from anywhere. Of course, at this price point, you won't find any mold lines as well. So anything you can think about that is related to sculpting, this figure got it covered perfectly. No issues at all. Zero. And one more thing to note is that this piece of dress over here, it is actually in contact with my table surface. It is not floating up like this in mid-air. So I really appreciate this. I want to see all these things touch the surface of the table or whatever surface you're displaying the figure with. With some figures, you know, their dresses will be like floating up in mid-air. It is an inaccuracy with the sculpt department or the molding part. So it does not feel natural. Because we have gravity, things are supposed to sit on the ground, not float up in mid-air. So this thing is touching the table surface. I'm very happy about it. So sculpt is a minimum 9.5 out of 10. Seriously, I tried my very best to find fault with this figure. There's nothing I could find. Details are definitely adequate on this figure. If you look at the base or even at the rifle, which is the main attraction point, this is a very high score coming from me. In fact, this is probably one of the highest scores I've ever given to any scale figure at 1/4. There are no other 1/4s which I've given as high as 9.5. But what about the face? The sculpt of the face is a full 10 of 10. Yes, 10 of 10. So I've seen some comments. I can't remember if it was Discord or my older YouTube video where some people were unhappy with her face. But you know, we were looking at the figure from a distance. That's number one. And number two, depending on the lens I use on my camera, sometimes wide angle lenses can make faces look a little bit weird. So I have a very close up look for everyone over here. And do remember that this review is available in 4K. That is if you are subscribed to YouTube Premium, that is where you get to see this video in 4K. So what do you think about the face close up? I think it looks perfect. The eyes, the mouth and everything. There's virtually nothing I can complain about. There's nothing I would change with the face. For those of you hardcore Nikke fans who have played the game since day one, maybe you can find a little bit more smaller faults with the face or anywhere else with the figure. That is fair, right? Because you have more experience with the game. And moving on to the paintwork, more good news, there are zero flaws to be found. Zero. I tried really hard to look for scratches, for paint transfer, for anything related to paint fading maybe. I could not find anything. Shading is very heavy-handed. If you look carefully at her dress, it is so obvious that there are so many different shades of red color, darker red, brighter red, heavy shading all around her dress. So even if this figure is mostly red in color, it is a lot more detailed than one would expect. Both her dress and her hair has this slight glitter finish that is pearlescent finish. Do remember that I'm someone who really hates glitter, and even more so if it is glitter glue. But the finish on this figure, it feels premium, it feels expensive, and it looks really nice. I like the finish on this figure a lot, not to mention it is very smooth to the touch. Very refined, I would say, right? No unevenness, no roughness, everything feels consistent across the figure no matter where you touch it. And of course, I need to talk about the rifle over here. I am a detail person. I love details on anime figures, and this is totally my kind of thing. So I might be a bit biased over here. Not necessarily because I like Nikke, but rather this is my kind of anime or game character. Pretty girls with big guns or big swords and lots of details. So this rifle here is totally my thing. And the rifle is sturdy, not shaking at all, so everything is good over here. So one more thing, Hobby Sakura added some additional details into the paintwork of this figure which were not present in the original official pictures when they were taking pre-orders for this figure, and that would be injuries or bruises at the back of her ankle over here, at the back of her heels over here. Initially, when I saw those discolorations over there, I thought it was a really big flaw in the paintwork, but upon closer look, it almost looked like they are being painted there intentionally. And even on her other feet over here, the one with a plaster, with a patch over there are also signs of injuries underneath the plaster, which was not present in the original official photos during the pre-order period. So I went to hboy.net, I went to myfigurecollection.net to check out other user pictures, and it seems like every other collectors and their Red Hood figure has the same exact paintwork at the heels over there on both feet. So that is supposed to be there. It is not a flaw at all. It is intentional. Nice detail over there which I never noticed initially during the unboxing process of my figure haul video. So speaking of the base, the last part of today's review, well, this is one heck of a unique base. This is something we tend to see more in premium resin figures, not PVC figures. A very heavy black rock base. Yes, this figure is kind of heavy, and underneath it, there is that trash mop spider over there, whatever the name is. So this is like a nice added detail to the figure, a bit of a diorama, yet at the same time, it does not make the footprint of the figure too big. It does not increase the amount of space needed to display the figure, and for that reason, I'm giving the base a 9.5 out of 10. 9.5, that missing 0.5 is this piece behind here, yeah, not being flush with the table surface, so she does rock back and forward a bit. But the figure's weight is so heavy that normally, even if you shake the table, the figure will not wobble at all, so it is actually a non-issue. I'm just trying to find fault with the figure when there's nothing to pick. So getting to the conclusions of today's review, as you can already tell, I am a very happy person. It was worth buying this even though I did not pre-order it initially. I waited until weeks before release, I went and bought one, right? Is this figure worth like 47 or even 50,000 yen? The answer is a big yes. Of course, if you can get her cheaper, try to find her at a lower price, but even if you couldn't, 50,000 yen for this thing is well worth it compared to even a 35 or 40,000 yen freeing figure. Yes, I know that I like to trash talk about freeing a lot, but at this point, I feel like I need to give more support to brands who give us better value for money, and Hobby Sakura is doing a fine job over here for their first ever 1x4 scale Nikke figure. And just barely a month later, next month in March, Cinderella is releasing, and yes, I will be unboxing and reviewing that one later on. So Until then, I hope that you found this review helpful and informative. If it is, please do give it a like and subscribe to this channel for more anime figure reviews, really detailed reviews like this one. And until then, I shall see you guys soon. Goodbye.